level, I'ma give you what you need. You don't gotta worry, I'ma put you on the ease. Yeah, you know I don't be messing with that drama. Yeah, you pretty cause you get it from your mama. And you know that I'll be coming by like karma. We do it different cause you know I'm with the shot.
Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, feel free to join the fun squad by hitting the subscription button, and let's have fun together. So as you can tell from the title of the video, today I'm going to be answering a question that has been asked a lot, as if it has been asked a lot. No, it hasn't. I've just got a few DMs on Instagram, but the one that prompted me to actually film a separate video, because the ones on Instagram I would answer them directly. Sorry if I'm looking down, I'm just looking at my phone so that I get the exact comment that prompted me to film this video. All right, just a minute. Yeah, so she said, I'm really assuming that it's a she. She said, thanks Lynn, could you please let us know how you found the apartment? Your response will be much appreciated. And then she says, I'm coming to Canada in January, and I don't know how to get one before I land to Canada. So this prompted me to make a separate video, because I was like, okay, so if I'm getting these questions on Instagram and also on YouTube, I might as well just create a video so that I just refer people to the video each time they ask me. Win-win situation. Answer the questions all at once, and then each time someone wants to know this information, I just forward the link. You get it? You get it? Anyways, without mumbling so much, let me get into the video. So first of all, I am going to be talking about this topic in two dimensions. I notice I am saying this topic without even addressing what I'm talking about. So I'm talking about accommodation in Canada, how to find accommodation in Canada, either as an international student or as a tourist or as someone just relocating to Canada. Generally, how are you going to be able to get your accommodation? So I'll be speaking mostly to the international students, because that is the category I am in right now. So I can only speak from experience of how I got my accommodation, which is this house that I am in. I'm currently in the bedroom section. If you haven't watched the other parts of the house, you might as well click on the link that will be right here, just showing you the empty house tour. Okay, I am done with letting you know the preliminaries of this entire video. So let's get into it. First of all, getting accommodation here is actually a tough paper. It is tough to get accommodation here, but not impossible. Yeah, it is tough but not impossible, because people have got accommodation and so will you. So as a student, there are two different ways you can get accommodation as an international student: either before you arrive in Canada or after you have arrived in Canada. So I'm going to be sharing with you the different things you can do to get your accommodation, firstly before you arrive in Canada. So now, before I address that, you need to understand, and this is a very huge disclaimer that you need to listen to, like, getting accommodation before you arrive in Canada can be tricky and unreliable, if I am to say so, because one, you do not know the place, especially if you've never stepped in Canada at all. Like, that is going to be your first time. It can be really hard, because one, you do not know the place, you do not know the place generally, you just do not know the country, and you do not know the dynamics of getting accommodation in this country, or how it works, or you can't even trust people because you've never met these people. So how are you going to trust them with your money? So before I even tell you how to get accommodation before you come to Canada, I'm just letting you know that it is a tricky situation and I wouldn't recommend it. But like I said, sometimes you are put in a hard place where you definitely have to get where to sleep, you know no one in the country, and you have no other option but to get this accommodation before you come into the country. So if that is you, no worries, there are solutions for you. So as an international student, you have two options: either to consider the on-campus housing or the off-campus housing. Yeah, now the on-campus housing is a little bit more secure, especially if you're getting your accommodation before you arrive in Canada, in the sense that it is associated with your university. Yeah, so you can apply for it on your university website, or you can send an email to your university, depending on how your university does it. For my university, that University of Ottawa, you can apply on the website. So on the website it shows you the different accommodations, then you apply and wait for them to respond, telling you which accommodation you've been given, because there are various accommodations on campus. So I am saying this one is secure because you're dealing with a university. The chances of a university being fraudulent are slim. Yeah, they are limited as opposed to dealing with individuals. I hope that makes sense. So that is the one option that you have. That one is entirely based on your university. So you need to, I cannot speak much about it because you need to speak directly to your university if you're considering on-campus housing. Of course, on-campus housing has its advantages and disadvantages, but that is for you to look into, because I may say it's expensive and yet to you it's not expensive. You get? So they are different variables. As for what I can say about it is that there is on-campus housing that you need to sort out with your university. Now, off-campus housing, which is the one I am working with right now, before you come into Canada, I even need to take a deep breath for this one. It can be tricky to get off-campus housing, but not impossible. I feel like I'm going to re-say this again and again. It is tricky but not impossible. So for me, I did not get this house before I got to Canada, and I'll get into that later on. But for people who have no option but to get their accommodation before coming into Canada, firstly you need to do your research before arrival. And when I say research, I am not saying come here and watch this video and say you've done your research. This is not sufficient research. Yeah, by research I mean go on Google, yeah, look at these places. For example, identify where your university is. Yeah, in your research you should have like those major key points you're looking at. For instance, for me, if it were me looking for accommodation before I arrived here, I would be looking at the distance to the university. I would be looking at the security of the place, which is hard to tell honestly from the internet, because how are you going to establish the security of the place on the internet? You cannot do that, but you try to do your due diligence. Yeah, I would look at the price definitely, because you need to look at something that is not going to drain you. Yeah, you're not going to apply, I mean, you're not going to get accommodation for a price that you know you cannot afford in it. Anyways, yeah, so those are the major things I would be looking at. So how do you check this out? Still in your research, put in the place of your university. For example, again, I'll be referring to myself because I can only speak from experience. So if I'm looking for accommodation next to University of Ottawa, I'm going to put in maybe houses close to University of Ottawa. Then the internet is your friend. The internet is really your friend. Like, all this information is on the internet. You just need to take your time and do your research. So you can just put in there, and then usually when a place comes in, there is like a map thing. I wish I could show you, but I'm using my phone. Yeah, so you can put in the reason that's why I'm not showing you is because once I put in, it's going to be showing my location. Yeah, so yeah, I don't want to share my location. But anyways, so you can put in if like an accommodation comes in, usually there is a map that comes below. There is a map that will show up. Yeah, so you click on it and you see the distance between that place and your university. You do not want to be staying in a place that is 2 hours away from your university. Like, honestly, that's not realistic, right? You need to get like a place that is, you know, you can walk to that place. Another thing to consider is maybe the transportation. Like, how close is that place to maybe the stations? How close is it to a bus station, a train station, whichever? Because truth is, there are moments that will reach when you need this transportation, especially in the winter. For example, now if you get an accommodation and from that place it's like a 15-minute walk to a bus stop, how are you going to handle in the winter? Like, you need to get a place that is close to a bus stop, and all these things can be got online before you even arrive here. Like, just put in the place. After finding like a place maybe you've seen through photos, you've liked the place, you've checked the prices, the price is in your range. Check what's the distance from this location, and usually they even have their address. And the good thing with the internet is that the good thing with this place is that you put in that exact address and it will show you the exact distance between that place and the university. So it shows you the distance to that. Put in distance from this location to a bus station so that you see what you're working with before you pay your money, and then come here and find that you are 20 minutes away from a bus stop, you are 2 hours away from the university. Then you'll be there saying, oh my goodness, I didn't know, blah blah blah. No, do your research. Yeah, so those are the things that you should be looking out in your research. The other thing is make use of online platforms. There are so many online platforms that you can use to get accommodation. For example, you can use Zoompa, there is Kijiji, there is also Facebook. Yeah, Facebook Market, I think. Not really Market, but like Facebook. There are groups on Facebook where people be advertising accommodation, student accommodation. Now I know you might be like some of us who had decided, oh, I am done with Facebook, I no longer use Facebook, I deleted my Facebook account. Friend re-download that app. Yeah, because you're going to need it. You might need it, not even just for a house. You might need it when you're when you are furnishing your house, because truth is, on Facebook you're going to get cheap things, yeah, from people like from Facebook Market. You can easily get so many things on Facebook. So yeah, it's a place that you can look at to get your accommodation. So those are the places I would recommend: Zoompa, Kijiji, Facebook, even Instagram. Okay, I don't know how you would use Instagram. Instagram is a little bit tricky. I do not know how you'd use it, and I haven't had someone who uses it, but try your luck. Yeah, those are the places that you can try and see how to maneuver. The other thing I would recommend for someone who is trying to get accommodation before they come here is maybe to get a temporary residence. Yeah, like not to settle exactly with a permanent one while you're not yet in Canada. For example, what I mean is that while as in Uganda, maybe I could have for example, while as in Uganda, I booked an Airbnb. Yeah, the one I was staying at before I got my permanent accommodation. So what you can do, you can book an Airbnb and maybe stay there temporarily, so that you can now start the search for your house while you are in Canada for your permanent accommodation. I know it may be hectic in terms of unpacking your things at the temporary accommodation, then again packing your things and then moving to your place, but truth is that little inconvenience is worth it. You'd rather have that little inconvenience than booking a place like for your permanent residence and not liking it, because most of the places here are going to make you sign 1-year leases. Yeah, like you're going to sign a 1-year lease and then you reach here and not like the place. You'd rather get a temporary place, stay there for like a month or even 2 or even some weeks, honestly, because for me, when I booked my Airbnb, it was like for 10 days, but mine was a different situation and I'll get to it later. So yeah, that is another option I would give to people who have not yet come to Canada and you're trying to look for accommodation. Get a temporary accommodation where you'll be staying when you've just arrived in Canada. Then within that temporary stay, whichever period you choose, or whether 2 weeks or 1 week or 1 month or 2 months, whichever period you choose, in that period while you are at your temporary stay, you then move to look for the permanent one while you are here. So that is my advice for people who are not yet in Canada but are trying to look for accommodation. Now that brings me to the people who are going to look for accommodation when you are here. So first of all, all that I have said for the people who are not yet here applies to you. Yeah, do your research, use social media platforms, get temporary residence where you can stay as you look for places. Also, the people who are not yet here, maybe if you have like a relative and you can stay with them. I know how tricky that can be, but yeah, it can work for you. It really can work for you. Yeah, or someone you know. I don't know if that is an option you're considering. Anyways, that is really for you to consider. So the people who are already here and you're trying to look for accommodation as a student, like I said, all the things I mentioned for people who are not yet here applies to you too. But what I can say is that walk around the neighborhoods. Yeah, for example, if you have come, like you're already in the country and you go to University of Ottawa and you've seen the distances, like at least you've moved and seen, you know, how things work, try to move in an area where you hope to stay. Yeah, so that is actually how I got my accommodation, this one. So I knew, so okay, let me just give you a little background of my position. Yeah, so I moved from Uganda and came to Canada. I had booked an Airbnb where I stayed for 10 days. Within those 10 days I did not get accommodation. I didn't even look for it. Yeah, and that's because I had a cousin who was staying here and she had an apartment. So in that apartment she was going to move, or like her lease was ending, so the plan was for me to move in, and when her lease ends I take over and like just sign my own lease. That was the plan, which was like, oh nice, I do not have to move around looking for houses. Yeah, accommodation started, yay. But when I reached at the accommodation, I did like the place. However, the landlord said that their policy was, once a tenant's lease elapses, yeah, now mind you, her lease was elapsing in September, yeah, end of September. Yeah, so they were like, once her lease elapses, the house needs to stay vacant for 1 month for another tenant to come in. So that would essentially mean that I move out, because I moved in September. Yeah, I moved in, stayed there in September with the hope that once her lease ends, I sign my lease starting October and just move on like swiftly. But they said their policy was that they needed the house vacant for a month for them to do renovations and all those things, which made sense. But in my head I was like, I cannot pack my things, leave to another place that I didn't even have plans of, and then stay in that whatever place for 1 month, that is October, then come back to this place in November. It felt like it was going to be an inconvenience for me in terms of move. Yeah, so I was like, it's not like I have shares in this place, so maybe I can just get another accommodation. So that was the start of disaster, guys. Accommodation in this place is not even a joke. Like, it is not a joke. When I tell you, I was stressed for those days. Yeah, from the time I found out that I now had to look for accommodation. So I went looking for like different student housings. So yeah, one other thing I forgot to mention, I think prior, is that there are different places that are specifically for student housing, like student accommodation, not affiliated to the university. It's just private, but mainly for students. For example, in this place we have one that is called Theo. So Theo is like a student accommodation. They have like students, blah blah blah. It's sort of like a university housing, but it's totally not affiliated to the university. So I go there, I search like for different student housing. So many things happened. Now the thing is that I wanted my own apartment. Like, I did not want to share. That was also another thing that I think made it harder for me, the fact that I didn't want to share an apartment with someone, or to the extent that actually say compromising. I was like, you know, it's okay, like if there are 2 bedrooms and each one has their own bathroom and toilet, maybe we can share the living area and the kitchen. Like, I started making those compromises because the journey to look for accommodation was actually tough. It wasn't even funny. So anyway, long story short, things did not work out with student accommodations. So I started looking for apartments. Now apartments, they ask for so many things, guys. They ask for so many things. Guarantor, blah, 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 all those things. I was like, yo, and like I had a limited time. And also remember, I'm saying remember, like I told you, I started looking for this accommodation in September and I wanted to move in October. So you can see that the time difference was really short. Like the time frame was really short. Most of the places I go to are like, we can be ready in November, we can be ready in November. I was like, yo, where? Hey. Anyways, so this one time I'm walking in the neighborhood. Like I was just walking in a certain neighborhood, and then I saw a post that said apartments for rent. I was like, you know what, like I looked at it, I was like, these look like these apartments that really I will not be able to afford, because like I had entered apartments that looked like this before, like through my walks. I love to take walks, evening walks, morning walks, anytime I am walking, really any free time I get, I'm taking a walk. So I had like seen several apartments that looked like these, and like each time I would enter, they would tell me prices that are abnormal, like they were so high. So I would be like, like I said, you don't want to commit to something that you know you cannot afford. Like, know your budget, really know your budget. So I looked at it and I was like, these are one of the apartments that I don't think I can afford. So I was like, you know what, I was like, let me just enter anyway. What's the worst that can happen? Like, guys, I have got, from the time I came to this country, I've got so many rejections that I am no longer afraid of rejections, honestly. Especially when it comes to jobs. Remind me to do a video about job hunting in this country, because guys, anyway, today I'm not talking about job hunting, but like I said, I've got so many rejections that I am sort of used to them at this point. Like, it doesn't even hurt. Like, it doesn't hurt. Like, even when I get a rejection, I'm like, oh, at least you responded, because trust me, some places don't even respond. So when I get a rejection, I'm like, yay, it's a win, you responded. So I was like, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that could happen was them telling me they don't have apartments available. So I was like, let me just enter. So I entered, and this guy is like, okay, let me take you around. They showed me some apartment, and he says this is the only apartment left for 1st October. Guys, this was the apartment. So I asked him for the price, and the price was actually not, like, I was actually scared for nothing. Like, it wasn't as abnormal as the other apartments I had gone to. So immediately I told him, can I get it, blah blah, like, can we work on the documentation? And then the hassle started. Guarantor, bank statements, insurance, what else did I have to get? Like, so many things that you have to work on. But I was like, you know what, at this point I was left with like 2 weeks to be evicted from the other place. Like, you guys, I was at the verge of being evicted from the other place before I get accommodation. That's how bad it was. So anyways, I immediately I did what I could, called the banks to get insurance. I called several things, like just to work on the things I needed for me to get into this house, which I managed to do successfully. And on 1st October I got the key to this apartment. So from all this long story I have told you, clearly the main important bit is that while in Canada, if you've arrived in Canada and you're looking for accommodation, take a walk in the neighborhood you would love to stay in. There are so many apartments that are advertising in those areas. Just walk in, don't even feel scared. Walk in and ask if they have available space. If they do not have, then move on to another place, just like that. Or you can ask your friends where they stay. Do you think at your building you have space there? Or you can even use these apps that I mentioned, Kijiji, Facebook, Zoompa. I don't know whether it's Zoompa, Zoom. No, I think it's Zoompa. Yeah, like, make use of these apps. And the good thing about you being here is that once you see it on the app, you can go and visit it physically to make sure that what you are seeing on the app is what they are offering you. Yeah, so I do hope that all that I have mentioned in these very many minutes helps someone that is trying to get accommodation. One thing I should say is that if you are already in Canada, visit that place. Yeah, visit the place, inspect it, make sure it's something you can work with, make sure it's something that you like, or if you do not like it, make sure it's something you are willing to work with. Yeah, in terms, are you willing to compromise on that particular thing that it lacks? If you are already here, you do not have an excuse of I did not see this coming, because go there, inspect the place, check how close it is to the bus station or the train station or your university. What is the walking distance? Yeah, can I walk to this place? What is the distance between my place and the grocery store? What's the distance between my place and the convenience store? Or what's the distance between this place and maybe a pharmacy? Or like, you get, look into all those things. Do not blindly accept any accommodation simply because you want to. But I do understand also that you can be in a fix. Yeah, you can definitely be in a fix. For example, I feel like I was capable of accepting anything at that point because I was at the verge of being evicted. Like, I saw it coming. I was like, guys, I'm going to be kicked out of this house and I won't have where to stay. But like, in my mind, I was like, if the worst comes to the worst, I'll get an Airbnb, which I actually did get. If you watched my previous videos, I did get an Airbnb, but that was only for a weekend because I left the place, the other house, on Friday and I was supposed to get my keys on Sunday. So I had to get an Airbnb for Friday night, Saturday day and night, and then Sunday for when I was getting the key for here. So yeah, I did get a temporary accommodation either way. So yeah, how are you going to get your accommodation? Just to restate what I have said in these 20-something minutes: make your research, make use of social media platforms, and inspect the place if you are in Canada. Yeah, I do hope that this video helps someone out there looking for accommodation in Canada, either as an international student or a permanent resident that is relocating in Canada. That is relocating to Canada. Yeah, anyone who is really planning on coming to Canada. The accommodation thing right here is not a joke, so brace yourself for it. Otherwise, I'm not trying to discourage you. You will get your accommodation. You just need to apply all these things I have mentioned and you'll be perfectly fine. So don't forget to always be happy and spread positive vibes. Until next time, bye. I'm out.